Now here's one more example, and it may be the most important example, because those innovations in pagers and products and those innovations in armored cars and service delivery systems, those can be copied. But the example I'll give you in service mindset stands out as the kind of story that you don't just simply copy. This happened to me when I was taking a taxi ride. Now for me, where I live in Singapore, basic is that the country should have lots of taxis, and in Singapore, we do. Expected is that if I go out onto the street to wait for a taxi, it shouldn't take me more than about 10 minutes for a taxi to come driving by. Desired showed up when I learned that I could have a corporate card with a special phone number and account number I could call for a taxi. Very convenient. They would recognize my number, they'd call me up, they'd tell me what the taxi number was, boom, it would usually arrive in 5 to 10 minutes. Just great. Except for the times when you really need a taxi, like when it's raining outside, or first thing in the morning, or at the end of a business day and everybody else is trying to call that number too, then you can't always get through. Well, fortunately, unanticipated showed up when I learned that I could fax for a taxi. I could send my fax through and they'd call me back and tell me the taxi number and how long it would take for the taxi to come. Great! I use it every night. In fact, at my home, I have a telephone, of course, and I've also got a fax machine on a separate line. Since I go to bed late, usually about 1 o'clock in the morning, one of the last things that I do before I go to bed is that I fill out a special form I've created and I fax it to the taxi company to ask them to send me a taxi the next morning. The form works like this. I say, "Hello, taxi company. Please send me a taxi at," and then I write in the time, 7:30 a.m. My destination is, and I write in where I'm going to go the next morning, in this case, airport. Here's my address where you can pick me up. Now, I don't really want the taxi company to call me back at 1:15 in the morning, if I fax them at 1 in the morning, to tell me the taxi number for tomorrow morning at 7:30. I'd rather they call me in the morning by 1:15 a.m. I hope I'm fast asleep. So I've added one more line to my form. It says, "Would you please call me tomorrow morning at," and I'd write in, for example, 6:30 a.m. And at 1 a.m. I send off my fax and I go to sleep. All is well and good. The taxi company not only calls me in the morning to tell me my taxi number, but they serve as my wake-up call. Nice. Except one night, my last telephone call at about 10:30 at night, when I put the phone down, I put it down and it looked to me like it went down. But it didn't go all the way down. You know how that can happen, right? It looks like it's down, but if somebody tries to call you, what do they get? Engaged tone, right? Meh, meh. So sure enough, 6:30 in the morning, this woman from the taxi company, she gives me a call. Meh, meh, meh. 6:35, she tried again. Meh, meh, meh. 6:40, she tried. Meh, meh, meh. 6:45, meh, meh. 6:47, meh, meh, meh. Oh my goodness. She sat there in her office on the other side of Singapore and said, "You know what? Mr. Kaufman and I have got a problem." Now, it's a good thing for me that she didn't say, "You know what? Mr. Kaufman's got a problem," because I would have been left there with no taxi. So I'm sleeping away. It's now 6:40, 6:47 in the morning. I didn't even know this was happening. Suddenly, at 7 o'clock in the morning, my doorbell rang. I woke up with a shock. I looked over. I saw the clock. I realized, oh my goodness, I didn't get my phone call. I don't know if there's a taxi coming. I'm a half an hour late. I got to get to the airport. I jump up. I go running over to the front door. I open up the front door. Standing right there on the 21st floor of my building is a taxi driver. He looks at me with a smile. He says, "Mr. Kaufman, I think your phone is off the hook. Look, but don't worry. At 7:30, in half an hour's time, we're going to have a taxi waiting for you downstairs. Right now, young man, you better hurry up and take a shower." And he took the door and he closed it in my face. I went running back. I jumped in the shower, got on my clothes, went downstairs, jumped into the taxi. And it was only finally on the way to the airport that I realized what must have happened. This woman at the taxi company, she'd picked up her radio, gotten in touch with some taxi driver in my area, convinced him to come over to my apartment and park, go to the elevator, go up to the 21st floor, find my apartment, ring the doorbell, wake me up, tell me my phone was off the hook, tell me the taxi number that was coming at 7:30 in the morning, close the door and disappear, and he got paid nothing because he's not the taxi driver that was going to pick me up at 7:30 a.m. Now, I look at that and I say, man, that is a level of service mindset that is so high, it's unbelievable. And I don't expect it again. And I don't test them to see if they'll do it again either. I don't leave my phone off the hook to see if they'll call or come and knock on the door the next morning. But you know what that level of service mindset has done for me? It's produced a very, very loyal taxi customer. I'm the kind of guy now who'll be standing in a taxi line somewhere waiting for taxis. Taxis are coming along. I'm the next fellow in line, and I look. And if the next taxi is not from my taxi company, but the one after it is, I'll step back and I'll say to the next person in line, why don't you go ahead and take this one? I'll take the next one. You know, people look at me like I'm a little strange because to them a taxi's a taxi. Not to me. To me, that second taxi is from my taxi company. Now, there is one more level of service. But it's not a level of service that's up here. It's a level of service that's down here. It's when a company does so poorly that they don't even meet the basics. And we call this level unbelievable. But not this kind, this kind. So be careful, you know. The next time somebody comes up to you and says, I tell you, the service in your company is just unbelievable, before you say, hey, thank you very much, you better check and make sure they're talking about this one and not this one. Now, what's the key point to remember from all these stories? What's the really key point to bring home? What was good enough for yesterday isn't good enough for today. What's good enough for today won't be good enough for tomorrow. We have to keep climbing and climbing up the stairs to deliver our customers better and better service value.